We've got, we talked about this yesterday. The news broke yesterday as we were on the show. Premier Doug Ford said he's dropping the 25% surcharge on electricity, but he says it's not a win. It's not, Doug. I'll tell you that. It's an embarrassing fiasco for you. Let's watch this.
Okay.
Are you concerned that suspending the surcharge that you've put on electricity will be considered a win by Trump?
No, I wouldn't call it a win whatsoever, because we still have it in our toolkit that we can use at any given time. Again, I mentioned to the governors, I apologize, we have to go to this extent. But remember, folks, we never started this war. President Trump started this economic war against Canada. It was unprovoked. I truly believed that we'd move forward and it would grow both economies, would create more jobs, more economic prosperity. Well, this has gone the other way. The economy right now, I'm concerned about it. And if a recession does happen, it's a self-made recession by one person and one person only. So I just want to move forward. I'm asking for the people of Ontario and Canada's support. I want to thank them for the thousands of messages I'm getting, even people that disagree with me. As some people say, I disagree with you 99%, but you're doing a great job. Keep going. I need everyone's support as Team Canada as we move forward, because these negotiations are going to be the toughest we've ever had.
So just to be clear, within 3 hours yesterday, Doug Ford went from saying, I will cut off the electricity
Gleefully.
If America escalates, I won't hesitate to cut off electricity to America, to 3 hours later getting called to the principal's office by Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of
Commerce.
Sheila.
Commerce.
Thank you, the Secretary of Commerce, saying, get your butt to Washington, and we are going to talk about this. Doug Ford got his hands spanked, just like we said yesterday on the show. Like, this is not going to work out for you, Doug. Making these threats are not going to work out for you, Doug. And that's exactly what happened. America is calling him, okay, to Washington to talk about these things. And I don't think that this is going to go the way Doug thinks it's going to go.
No. Trump responded to this. He said, we had a problem with Ontario, but it's fixed. So let's see this.
We had a problem with Ontario, and they dropped that when I let them know what we were going to be doing. They dropped it immediately, so I'm glad, because electricity, you shouldn't be playing with electricity. It affects people's lives. Actually, their life. I mean, it can affect, depending on weather, it can affect their life.
Yes.
So we can't do
Yes.
that. And it doesn't make sense that our country allows electricity to be made in another country and sold into us. Who did that deal for the United States? Okay, I looked at that long ago, and I said that's not something that's very smart. So we've had a lot of bad trade policies, and yet we're doing.
Ontario's hydro, is going to have to find a new consumer, because what Donald Trump just said is he's going to self-make their electricity. Why are we dependent on Canada? If they can threaten to shut it off, why are we depending on them? And we're going to make it ourselves. So well done, Doug. You just lost your hydro sector, your hydro market in the United States.
Yeah, and Trump is right. Like, imagine, let's say, for example, there's a nice little old lady that lives in your house and she needs oxygen. You are going to increase the cost of electricity, and perhaps her family can't afford to pay the power bill now, and her oxygen tank gets cut off. Like, that's the game that Doug Ford was willing to play with innocent Americans, just allowing them to be caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, and let's not forget, we're not out of winter yet.
Right.
The end of March and early April are well known for some screamer winter storms, and to threaten to do this in a season where if you cut off the heat and electricity to people. They will die. They will die. This is much, much worse than air conditioners getting shut out and shut off in brownouts, as often happens in blue states in the United States. Winter is not to be trifled with, and to do that at this time, and without any consideration. You're right, for the very old, the very vulnerable, and people that stay alive because of that electricity. It's crazy. It was a crazy threat.
Now, I want to point out the Liberal hypocrisy on this, because Mark Carney last night, right? It's the 12th. Yeah. So last night at 5:05 Mountain Time, Mark Carney tweets this. He says, "It has been more than 2 days that the supply of electricity to Gaza has been shut off. It must resume. Essentials including food, electricity, and medical supplies should never be used as political tools." Oh, Canada must work with our allies to stand up for international law, to promote sustainable peace and security in the Middle East, and to support full access to humanitarian aid for Palestinian families. As this work continues, both parties must work towards the return of all hostages. He didn't say Israeli hostages. That's who's holding the hostages, right? Is the Hamas holding Israeli hostages, not all. Like this wording indicates that there are hostages on both sides. And the completion of the ceasefire agreement. Israel is at war with Gaza. Now, they have no obligation to provide electricity, food, and supplies to the people actively trying to kill them. What is required of them is to not cut off the supply routes for other people to supply it to them. But they are under no obligation to provide food and electricity to the people who are trying to kill them. That's not how it works. But I'm reliably informed by the chief negotiator for Team Canada, Doug Ford, that using electricity against innocent people is an appropriate trade cudgel. So imagine what you should be able to do with it during war. The Liberals can't pick a lane here. Not only Carney has never said a peep about Israel this whole time. And the first thing he has said, he's weighed in on the side of Hamas here and condemned Israel for not providing its enemies electricity and food. Somebody else can do it. Talk to Jordan. They can pay for it, right? Like, yes. It's not Israel's problem. But Doug Ford just threatened to cut off electricity to innocent Americans governed by a democratically elected president.
And it makes you wonder if Doug Ford or the Liberal Party or our Liberal government believes we are in wartime right now with the United States. We saw Chrystia Freeland in the lead up to the Liberal leadership decision say, call for French and British nuclear powers to defend Canada against the United States. You just have to wonder if they believe that we are in a pre-war period with the United States. And that should be enough to put a chill down every single Canadian spine. That is nothing to joke about. I mean, we are outgunned. Their military is the fiercest military in the world. And we would not win. And yet this sounds as though that is what they're lining us up for. So I mean, maybe one of the mainstream media could ask them, are you suggesting that we are at war with the United States?
Right, because but even if we were at war in the Liberals' minds with our best friends and neighbors, even they would not agree that cutting off electricity was appropriate. Right? Like, that's what Mark Carney just said. But to your point that the Liberals would assume a wartime footing, I think they would. And the people they would be at war with would be Canadians, right? We saw how quickly they invoked a wartime law called the Emergencies Act on Canadian citizens. Now, this is an existential threat when you've got Trump saying, well, you should just become the 51st state and we'll hammer you economically until such time as you just agree. The Liberals will see that as at least something that they could manipulate to inhibit the civil liberties of Canadians, because they did it for the honkening, which is much less.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, but before it was the Emergencies Act, it was the Wartime Measures Act, and they invoked that against regular Canadians. We should be under no illusions that they'd be prepared to do that to us again, based on their response to the American tariff crisis.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.